Hi, this is Thomas the Hermit, and I'm in the backyard of the place that I'm staying right now. There is a couple named the Bakers, Nancy and Dale Baker, and they have allowed me to stay with them and do work on their microfarm. My truck is broken down here, and the Lord has told me that He wants me to put a garden in. Well, on this particular video that I'm sharing with you, I want to share with you some of the ways that the devil uses to keep us from doing his will. Now, this is not an extensive list because the devil has many ploys and tactics to keep us from doing the will of God. And we need to be ever alert for what he is doing. If God has called you to a prayer life, you need to be extra diligent and on the watch against the devil stealing your vocation away from you. So I'm not going to make a list in any particular order. I'm just going to talk off the top of my head about the different things that I've experienced throughout my life and have seen the devil working. And I'm going to start with a very big one. If you are married, one of the chief methods that the devil uses to keep you and your wife from doing his will, or if you're the woman, it would be your husband, and that is to create fights and arguments between the two of you. It is written in the letter of James that when a husband and wife are in agreement, God will not withhold anything from them. So you need to remember that. But more importantly, you need to understand that one of the major tactics of the devil is to create problems within a marriage. Will the devil inspire negative thoughts about one's spouse? Yes, this is one of the major methods that he uses. And not only does he do it in a marriage, he will do it in a group. He loves to create negativity towards one another. The remedy for that, of course, is love. Love overcomes a multitude of offenses, says the scriptures. When we love people, we overlook the things that they do that bother us. Idiosyncrasies are never a justification for creating discord within a marriage or within the family of God. Bringing discord between people is a major technique, and when he causes division, he keeps people from coming together in the Lord, and then thereby, when people pray together, it is a powerful force that the devil does not want to deal with. Okay? On a personal note, one of the most personal ways that the devil keeps us from doing God's will is to tell us that God hasn't asked us to do anything, or that we are not capable of it, or that we are not worthy of it. Now, if God calls you to something, He has called you. There is no more question as to whether or not you should be doing it. If He's called you to do it, then you need to be moving in that direction. You do not need to be getting into these ideas about being unworthy. Let me put that to rest. You are unworthy. I'm unworthy. The apostles were unworthy. St. Francis of Assisi was unworthy. We are all unworthy to be God's servants. Nonetheless, His love calls us and impels us to serve Him. I serve God because He told me to serve Him. You do not serve God because you will become wealthy by serving Him. You may not become wealthy by serving God. You serve God because He called you to serve Him. But which direction do I go? Well, you go in the direction that He's called you to go. Let me give you my favorite example. St. Francis of Assisi was praying in a church. This is one of my favorite stories. And he looked up at a crucifix in this broken, rundown church, and the crucifix spoke to him and said, "Rebuild my church." St. Francis looked around at the broken down church and then began to pick up rocks and put them back where they were supposed to go. And then he went out and begged for materials and began to rebuild the church that he was crumbling, the broken down church that he had been praying in. That was the beginning of St. Francis's ministry to actually rebuild the church in the 12th century. In other words, when God tells you to go do something, you take a step out in faith. Faith is not knowing. Faith is believing and trusting and walking with God because He has called you. Could you be wrong? Of course. St. Francis was wrong. He thought he was supposed to rebuild some broken down churches that weren't being used anymore. He was actually being called to create a religious order, a brotherhood of love that gave example to the common people on how to make their Christianity real in the 12th century. And the Franciscans are now the biggest religious order within the whole Catholic Church. So like St. Francis, you step out. You do not listen to what the devil has to say. Be diligent against what the devil does. The devil will double talk you. He will spin you around. He will make things go backwards. He will lie to you. One of the primary ways to overcome the devil is to stay as close as you can to Jesus in prayer. When you stay close to Jesus in prayer, you will overcome the tactics of the devil. Will you fail sometimes? Will the devil mislead you at times? Yes, he will. But even when you are misled by the schemes of the devil and by his lies, God can still set you back on a sure path if you will turn back and continue by faith to do His will. And He can make all things work out for the good for those that love Him. But for those who diligently step out and persevere in faith, you will have nonetheless the greatest treasure of all, which is the love, peace, and joy and depth of walking with God and in the Holy Spirit. This is Thomas the Hermit teaching about overcoming the tactics of the devil. Persevere in faith, therefore, and continue to seek and continue to pursue God's will for your life. Say a prayer for me. I certainly need it. And I'm praying for you, and I will talk to you later.